Okay. Hopefully this goes all right.
Yeah.
Okay, Kythol. Let's talk about Ty the Tasmanian Tiger.
Yes. My specialty in speedrunning.
Yes,
Uh,
definitely your specialty.
yeah. Yeah. Very interesting game. Very
Yeah.
interesting. It's unfortunately it's not like it's not one of the Jack and Daxters or the Ratchet and Clanks of like that PlayStation 2 animal mascot era.
Hmm.
Not then, and then when speedrunning started becoming a big thing, it wasn't then either, because when you look at, Jack and Daxter, you have roll jumps and all this cool movement and boosted uppercuts and that kind of stuff. Ratchet and Clank, it's you got charge boots. Like, what else do you want? Like, and then we're just kind of sitting here like, yeah, we can walk if you want us to. We could technically bite, but it's slower. So we just don't have like the flashy movement or anything like that. And it's also very, very niche in the fact that it is very Australian, like super super Australian, to where
Oh,
like
absolutely.
it turns a lot of people away, because like Ratchet and Clank and Jack and Daxter and Spyro and all those all have like universal appeal, where unless like you're really young and you're gonna play whatever, like when I started playing the game I was like 5-6 years old.
Hmm.
uh like, you're not going to play it, because like, why would I want to play this game that makes no sense when I could play shooter cat roams the galaxy,
No, I hear you for sure. It's kind of sad though, because I think that the game has a lot of charm when you kind of dig down into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
obviously it's got
I
weird.
appreciate it. I enjoy it very much. Like, as I've grown older, of course, I see a lot of like the quirks and the flaws and whatever, but I'm like, yeah, but it's still a fun game. So
Mhm.
once you can kind of like get past that, both in terms of like casual and like the surface level of speed running, then it can get very interesting. It has a lot to offer.
There you go. What got you into Thai speedrunning in the first place?
So it kind of starts with me learning about speedrunning in the first place, which was January of 2014. I was just on Twitch because I was big in watching StarCraft and playing StarCraft at the time. And I was just on Twitch and looking at the homepage, and I saw Jack and Daxter, one of my childhood games, on the being the top game on Twitch, and I'm like, what is going on? Why is Jack and Daxter the top of Twitch? So I had to go and see, and I see, what is his name? Bonesaw, running Jack and Daxter at AGDQ 2014.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool, because as a kid, the game that I remember doing it most with is the Cars video game for the movie Cars.
Hmm.
Uh, I enjoyed that game a lot as a kid. So as a kid, I would be like, okay, I'm gonna beat this game in a day or 5 hours or something like that, just to give myself an arbitrary amount of time and just try and beat the game. Um, and that's always kind of what I would do as a kid. And so seeing that other people were like that, I'm like, wait a second, other people do this too. It wasn't just me when I was younger, being a kid with not very many games.
Hmm.
So I saw that and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Completely forgot about it for like 6 months, because I was so invested in StarCraft at the time. 6 months rolls around, SGDQ comes around, and I see, I want to say it was VVV. I'm pretty sure. And I saw that, and just kind of seeing, even though 2D games have never really been my thing, I've never really been a 2D platformer kind of person. I saw that and I was like, hey, that's really cool. You know what? I'm actually going to try, getting into speedrunning, something like that. And I kind of went to my game cabinet, looked at old games I had, and I saw Jack and Daxter, and I remember that. And then Tyler Tasmanian Tiger, because when I first got my PlayStation 2, those were the first two games I had: Jack and
Right.
Daxter and Tasmanian Tiger. So I went through, and I kind of looked up Thai runs, and I didn't see the world record at the time. I saw what was at one point the world record, 1 hour and 26 minutes even, by Vinylith, VINYL 78, something like that. It was weird.
Okay.
and I just kind of did that, and I kind of emulated it, had fun with it, and then started looking it up more, and then looking at like records and stuff. And at that point, I couldn't stream because I went where I had lived there. It was literally the middle of nowhere. Like my internet was like 100 kilobyte a second downloads.
Oh
So
gosh.
the upload, and this is like 2014,
Yeah.
2015. So like I physically could not stream if I wanted to. So
Mhm.
eventually, because it was partially me convincing my parents, and also because my parents were starting to get more into internet stuff. Um, Finally, in like January of 2015, we finally upgraded to Comcast internet instead of really crappy Verizon, barely working
DSL or
internet.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, DSL. It was so I finally got good internet, and then from there, I did like one run of Time the Tasmanian Tiger. Now, what I enjoyed it, but I wasn't really like going to get super serious with it. I was much more interested in Jack and Daxter, running Jack and Daxter specifically, no save and load, because I would talk with Jazz a good bit. Me and Jazz were pretty close friends at the time. Like, I mean, I would say that. I don't know if he would agree with that because like we just talked in Twitch chats, but I really enjoyed being around Jazz. And then another no
Mhm.
save and load runner at the time, Vasco with two V's, V
Okay.
Vasco, and like I really enjoyed talking with them. So I was a lot more interested in Jack and Daxter. The problem was I was just absolutely terrible at Jack and Daxter, just straight dog water at the game. I was just awful, just like I'm not great with movement.
Mm.
I'm much better with like understanding where I have the ability to save time rather than like precise movement,
Mhm.
knowing what to do when things don't go as they should. So unfortunately, because my Jack and Daxter movement was not great, I eventually wanted to, do a marathon because that seemed interesting. And there was a marathon. I can't remember the name of it. That was an entire fiasco. It was like my run was like at 7 in the morning, and the person who was running it fell asleep, so I didn't get started until like noon. But when I submitted, I wanted to submit Jack and Daxter No Save and Load, and they were like, "We already have a Jack and Daxter game," but they got Jack and Daxter mixed up with Ratchet and Clank,
Oh
so they
no.
didn't have a Jack game. So I was like, "Okay," and then I was like, because I needed one more run, and I was like, "Okay, I'll do tie instead," and then I did tie. It was terrible. The record at the time was 59 minutes and 4 seconds, and I did it in like an hour and 18 minutes because this was GameCube emulated on PC, and
Oh man.
I was terrible at the game, but I had a lot of fun. And that's what really kind of got me going with Pi. And then about a month later, um, because that was at the end of my senior year of high school, and I was about to go to college.
Mhm.
Um, Ty had gotten into SGDQ 2015 with the record holder at the time, Dark Papa One, and we were all really excited. And then he got super burnt out and just from the game, and he really just didn't want to run the game anymore. So he pulled out of GDQ, and we were all kind of a little sad because like we wanted to show the game off at GDQ.
Mhm.
So at that point, because I wanted to run a game, I was waiting to go to college. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try and actually get good at the game because at the time, no one else had gotten a sub 1 hour time. The next closest was like Albino Albatross, who ran a bunch of different games. He's been at GDQs running various things before, but he was kind of like one of those runners that would go around and run as many games as possible just to say, hey, I ran X amount of games.
Yeah.
So he was the next closest, and he had like an hour and 2 minute and 30-second time somewhere around there. So it wasn't anywhere close to sub 1 hour. So there was like no one that was remotely close to that time. And because I was, summer vacation going to college, I had like a bunch of time to just kind of sit there and grind. So for my 18th birthday, I got money. And I bought myself an Xbox copy of Tide that I had looked into buying it previously, and it was like $100, and I was like, no, I'm not
Gosh.
buying that. but I found it for $18 on Amazon. So I was like, okay, cool.
Much better.
And then what was the? Oh yeah, and then I bought G Fuel, which by the way, G Fuel is terrible. It's so chalky. But like
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
gamer people at the time were like, drink G Fuel. I'm like, okay, I want to be a better gamer, so I'm gonna try G Fuel, and it was not good. But at least one of the things I bought with my birthday money was actually fun and useful. So I bought that, and I got pretty good pretty quickly because I had a lot of time to dedicate to it. Um, and I dedicated a lot of time. Specifically, there's one skip, mill skip on the level Snow Worries. It's kind of a running joke now that it's kind of supposed, as far as I'm aware, it's supposedly kind of obsolete. But I spent 150 hours just so I could save 2 seconds, if that.
Wow. That's all. So you
That
grinded the
that's
trig for just several days at a time, and then
Yeah, like a
only
solid
saved 2
two
seconds.
weeks. Because the reason is because of the way it works. You go up to this ledge and you have to turn around and land on this part that you're not really supposed to land on. And the
Mhm.
way that people would do it before is they'd walk up to the ledge, turn the camera, and then go for the jump. And I'm like, that's slow. I'm just gonna run and jump and not bother turning the camera.
Mm.
And that's really precise. It's not really precise, but it's a important trick because if you fall down the mountain, we would call it the fall of shame because your run's basically dead.
Yeah.
You would lose 30 plus seconds because you'd have to go because at the very top of the mountain, there's no way to recover from that spot. You'd have to go down to the mountain, either get to this arena, which is really difficult and takes a while, or just go all the way down to the very bottom, get yourself killed by a couple of mobs, and spawn at the very top of the mountain to try again. So because of that, I spent a solid 150 hours just so I could save that extra time of not having to stop, turn camera, then jump, while also making sure I'm not going to be falling down the mountain,
Gotcha.
which
Okay.
was a little extreme, but hey. But yeah, so I progressed pretty quickly. My PB when I got my Xbox version of the game was like, I don't remember, it was like an hour and 10 minutes. Within a month, I was approaching sub 1 hour. I got sub 1 hour, second person to ever get that.
Nice.
And because I was going to school and I didn't have my copy of the game with me, I would be at school for a few weeks. And I was decently close to home because I lived on campus. I was like a couple hours away. So
Right.
I'd be there for like a couple weeks to a month at a time. Then I'd go home for a couple days. Straight up just grind the game, go back to school, be there for a few weeks, go home, grind the game, that kind of stuff. So like I didn't have a lot of time, but I made sure that whenever I did have the time to, I would be grinding the game because I wanted to, you know, break the sub 59, the 59 barrier because Papa was 4 seconds off at the time, 59 minutes, 4 seconds.
Hmm.
And in December of 2015, I got a 59:07, um, 3 seconds off. And I was so frustrated at it that I didn't upload it for like until like March when SGDQ submissions came around because I was not happy with it because I knew that I could do better.
I know that feeling.
Even though it was 3 seconds off, I was doing that. And so I finally used it as my submission for SGDQ 2016, got it in, and then finally in May of 2016, I got the 58-minute, 55-second time first sub 59-minute, and I remember because I'd gotten home a couple weeks earlier from my first year of college, which that's a whole other story that doesn't really matter. But so I got home, was really grinding that, and the way I did it was I would record runs using my ancient. Did you ever do trick shotting on like Call of Duty at all or anything like that?
No, not me personally.
Oh, so there was a capture card that was ubiquitous with the early 2010s of recording, and it was the Hauppauge HD PVR. It was this capture card that used the five composite cables, the
Okay.
red, green, blue, red, white.
Yep.
cables. There was no HDMI input or anything like that. It was like the size of like a mini PlayStation 2.
My
It
gosh.
was it was like $200, but I had it, and that was what I used as a capture card. And it had this weird thing where if you tried, where when you would record or have the recording software open on your PC, all the sound and video would be about a second to a second and a half delayed from what you were actually doing.
Oh gosh.
And it was really janky for streaming as well because you couldn't just like pump the footage right into like the streaming software. You would have to open up the window, get a window capture of the capture window software, and then put it like that. And it was just weird. So for the most part, I just recorded all my runs offline.
Mhm.
So when I got that PB, I remember being really excited, shouting in my house, "I got the world record!" And my parents being like, "What?" And going on Twitch and talking over it because that's just what I did with my runs. Um, it was great, but yeah, it was very stressful because I had tried for not quite a year, like 10 months to finally get that barrier, partially to break the record, partially to get the barrier broken. And that was very stressful. And I stunted a lot of my growth. I think I could have improved a lot better because you can. I don't know if you'll be interviewing Napa for this, but you could ask him, KFN Napa.
Mhm.
I had this terrible, terrible, terrible mindset where, after a while, I had like 6,000 attempts. A good 4 to 4,500 of them were reset within the first minute and a half to 3 minutes of the game, and it's an hour-long run. Um,
Mhm.
if I lost like a quarter second in the first level, I was resetting because I was just that much of a perfectionist with the early game. And
Mhm.
part of the problem of why it took me so long was because I had pretty much at the time the best first hub of the game out of anyone. Um, my second hub, solid, still one of the better ones. My third hub was terrible because I never practiced it and never got there in runs.
I was gonna say.
And third hub is super punishing because it has one of my favorite levels, or actually my favorite level to run beyond the black stump, but the other two levels and the boss are the three of the worst levels in the game. Has three of the most frustratingly just not really insane. They're not difficult, they're not precise, but they're very frustrating to deal with if it goes wrong because it's at the end of the run. And it also has a lot of dead time.
Mhm.
And then also one of the only points of RNG in the run that actually matters. And it's just really frustrating, that hub. So I never wanted to practice it because I didn't enjoy it. Um, and I never got there and run, so I couldn't practice it and run. So it took me a lot longer than it probably should have to get 58, 55. But from there, went to GDQ. That was an experience. And around that time, that March is when the PC version released. Uh, and from there, when the PC version released, I didn't really want to run it because there were a lot of stability issues because it was in an alpha state essentially.
Mhm.
Like you could buy it in alpha and enjoy it and play and support and give them bug feedback and bug reports and that kind of stuff, but it just crashed so much. So I
Mhm.
didn't bother with the PC version until the official release, which was December of 2016. And then from there, I from 5855, I brought it down a couple more times on original console to like 58:37, I think, something like that, and then 58 minutes 20 seconds, which actually not my best time. One time I had taken a little bit of a break from the game after GDQ, and I was getting back into it and derusting it. So like, and this is like a trend of mine where if I'm derusting, I won't record at all. Uh, and then I accidentally got a 58-minute 7-second time without recording. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and that's happened on not just this game, but a couple other games that I run where I'll just get insane times when not recording. So it's
Mhm.
just one of those things. Um,
So
and
before we move
from
on, real quick, I just wanted to
Yeah,
double check, make sure I'm on the same page with you. The 5820 was on original console, right?
yes, that was the last that is the current world record on original console. The time 5820 had been beaten on PC by then, but that was the last world record that was made on original console.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you said it was already beaten by that time. So it was the stability stuff had been fixed by then, or this was still in a bad spot?
So the 5820, that was a little bit before Californiathon 2017, and I bring that up because that run was actually at a marathon event to raise money for a couple of people. One of them being a good friend of mine, Konosumi, who was on the couch at my GDQ run. To help them get to Californiathon and go there. And I did it because Konosumi was a good friend of mine and I wanted to support him. So I did the run there. There were some internet issues because Comcast sucks. Eventually got it sorted out, and then I pulled out a 5820. And at the time, I would have been running on PC, but I was focusing on console because I wanted to do it because while the stability issues were better, I wasn't necessarily comfortable running the game on PC, not and having it potentially have stability issues. I would rather just run it on console where I know it's going to be stable and not have to worry about crashing or anything like that.
Makes sense.
And like the time difference at that point was like less than a minute, if that. It was like 5740 or 40 something was like the world record on PC, and my console record was 5837, and then it was 5820 after that. So it was like not that big of a deal. Now we know that, or we knew then, but now we definitely know that load times on PC are a lot faster. But I just ran it on console for making sure that the marathon was going okay. So
I get you. Okay. And then before we continue with the rest of the story, I know that Chronicies is involved in this.
Yes.
She before all this, right? She was like old school, so she would have been
Banjo. So she was a big Banjo glitch hunter. In I want to say 2013. I can check real quick. Chronic Keys title. Because there was like a month or two where she came and just found a good number of bugs in the game. Okay, so like late 2013, early 2013 to 2014, basically. She came and she found a lot of the skips that we would use in the run then. Off the top of my head, the ones that I know that she found the Liar Liar Pants on Fire skip. She found the mill skip on Snow Worries, although that's kind of disputed. There may have been proof of that beforehand, but as far as I'm aware, she was the one that popularized it.
Right.
Let's see here. She found the Walk in the Park slide 1 skip. She found the skip at the Cast Pass skip that skips most of the level. She also found one of the more difficult versions of, there's a small skip that we do at the beginning of Bridge on the River Tide that skips like a cutscene and some walking. And she found like this really convoluted way of doing it where you like jump forward and you have to bite on this specific part of the texture and you stay there and then you can run up and do it. And when I started running the game, like February 2015, I was just kind of trying to learn that skip, and I could not get it because I was bad at the game at the time. So I'm just kind of looking around for another way to do it. And I see this box behind the start of the level. And I'm like, okay, let's see what happens if I stand on the box. And I'm just kind of jumping around. And then I find out, you can just use the box to do it without having to do this really difficult bite, or not really precise bite skip. And it puts you closer anyways to where you want to be. So you're not having to walk forward and then walk back. You just walk back anyways. So it skips part of the walking. And I remember going on Twitter and being like, hey, did you know about this? And Chronicky said, yeah, we didn't know about it, but it wouldn't save any time. And I remember thinking, are you sure that won't save any time? And no shade to Chronicies, but yeah, it saves at least 1 to 2 seconds. If probably more. I'm not really like too versed in how much time it saves. I just know it saves time. Just because it's more direct. It's more direct. And it doesn't require you getting an animation that keeps you in place for at least a second. So it's just one. It's my only contribution to the game.
Hey, listen, you've done runs. You got some world records. I think that
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah, but in terms of like routes, or actually no, there's one route thing that I did, but like in terms of like skips and that kind of stuff, I'm more of the speedrunner. I don't really find things. I just kind of take what everyone else does and puts it together
I
and
get
just
you.
does it. I've never really been the route glitch hunter person. Not really
Makes
my
sense.
kind of thing. But yeah, Chronic Keys found skips that are still used to this day. So I feel like probably eventually those kinds of things would have been found, but having someone who has a lot of experience with glitch hunting in a game like Banjo and Kazooie, which is a massive speed game of its own, right?
Mhm.
Having someone who's well versed in that come to a little known game and find a bunch of this stuff was very helpful at the time. It really definitely transformed the run from being super basic, where there would be like a couple of minor things to where, hey, we have actual skips that skip things.
Mhm.
Because before it was like, as far as I'm aware, before it was like you did like very, very slight like corner cutting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing, no major skips or anything. That was like the first part where it was like, hey, we actually have like stuff that skips some of the intended parts of the game. So,
That was a good moment.
but yeah, but unfortunately, she never found that gate skip. So,
Yeah, talking about gate skip. Talk to me.
oh
So obviously, don't want to jump too far ahead. I want you to kind of
yeah,
keep yourself in that mindset of 2017, 2018, whatever. Right.
yeah, because yeah, we're getting close to the end of right before my end before gate skip. So,
Hmm. Yeah. So talk to me about like who was it who had this idea? I think you said someone did something, but I'll let you talk about it. Who found this idea and like what made you think it was real? And then what did you guys do? What y'all think about that back then?
so for me, it's a little different than everyone else, because I had been trying to find a way to skip that gate since I was like 5 years old,
Hmm.
because the final boss before the final boss of the third hub, Fluffy and Fluffy's Fjord, it's the hitboxes for the second phase are very finicky and kind of jank. There's these vents that shoot up fire, and like the what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take the flamerang, the flame boomerang, throw it through the fire, and then it hits the boss and damages it. Well, I
Hmm.
tried that multiple times and it just never worked. So my 5-year-old brain said, "Okay, we have boomerangs that explode. Why does this not damage the boss when it's standing over ice? You know,
Hmm.
and it's made of metal." So like for 5 years, I could not get past that boss, and I just knew that that was where the last part of the game was. So when I was a kid, I would look around constantly for like ways to skip the gate, and like I knew as a kid, like I would jump and look through the little holes and see that the portal's there. So I knew that the portal was there. So I knew for a while that you could, like in theory, do that, but me being small brain child, I could never find a way. And
Hmm.
so fast forward to like when I was running, I was surprised to see that, hey, no one had found a way to get past this gate. And talking with people who had been in the game for a little bit, they'd been like, "Oh yeah, it's something, like it'd be great, but there's no real way to do it." Um, and there's a video by MHF Silver who kind of goes over a lot of the history of the speedrunner perspective of the skip. And they
Hmm.
had done some modding with Dolphin Emulator to go back there and see, like, hey, yeah, you can go through the portal without the gate being open.
Hmm.
Um, so that was just kind of a thing for a while, and I went through a lot of different areas of the game, just trying to find things that you could grab onto, things you can get up on, things you can go through, and that kind of stuff. And it's like props to Chrome. Out of every one of the levels that they could have made airtight, they made the main hub world of Rainbow Cliffs, the most airtight level. Because there's just some really stupid stuff you can do in basically every other level of the game. You
Hmm.
can walk your way through walls, you can do all this kind of crazy stuff, but no matter what we did in Rainbow Cliffs, we could not find a way over that damn gate.
Hmm.
It was really frustrating. So in 2018, back to my history a little bit to kind of get to the point that I want to make. So in like 2017, after I got my PC world record, I finally made the full conversion to PC after getting the last record on console.
Mhm.
And I was not like super motivated in running the game. I had some mental struggles involving my GDQ run, and just mental blocks just running the game as well.
Mhm.
To where what would happen is I would kind of run the game to get the record, or to improve the game, be the fastest time, and then not bother because I just didn't want to push it any further. And then Napa, like a week or two, maybe a month later after I would get it, he would come and break my record, and then I'd sit there for like 6 months, and then eventually go and break his. And that went back and forth a couple times until I got a 53-minute 12-second time, which was literally a 1 second world record. And I kind of was just really done with the game. I had other games I was interested in. I was looking into running the second game of the series at the time and getting record there. I think I may have already gotten it at that point. I was also more interested in another game called. Actually, no, this was a little bit before Funk Unplugged. I think. Let me make sure.
Yeah, but I mean, the point was still kind of stands that you were
Yeah,
more
it
or
was my
less.
last run.
Yeah.
I was just super burnt out at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was about 6 months before I found my next speed game, but I was really burnt by that point. And I really hated Hub 3. Hub 3 just was really unfun for me. As much as I love Beyond the Black Stump, the other two levels, Liar Liar Pants on Fire and Rex Marks a Spot, on top of Fluffy being a super frustrating boss, I I hated that part of the game. And I just kind of said to the people of the community, which was a lot smaller at the time on Discord, I just said, look, or I don't know if I said it in Discord or I said it somewhere, but I was like, look, I'm not running this game again until Gate Skip's found. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot put myself through the mental stress of running this game anymore until
Mhm.
this part of the game that I legitimately hate running through is out. I cannot do this anymore. Um, and I would check back in occasionally, and I would look into like a couple things. And a few months before Gateskip was actually found, I was really tired of no one making progress, so I said, "All right, I'll make the progress myself." So I went on Dolphin. I found the height value, your y coordinate value, and
Right.
I went around and edited it, and I tested some stuff with the gate, such as if you get behind the walls around the final area, you can't get back in to activate the portal. If you were to try and get under the portal, it's just an infinite void, so there's no way you can do that.
Mhm.
You could get over the gate. You could ledge grab the gate. If you were to somehow get inside of the gate, you could exit in any direction you want. It was like a one-way wall. It wouldn't let you in, but it would immediately let you out however you wanted.
Okay.
And I said, "All right, please take this and do something with it." Like, because I tried so long to try and find something, and I was out of ideas. Oh, and the last idea, there's like this invisible box at the top, on the top of the tallest point in Rainbow Cliffs, and I was like, hey, maybe if you could proxy your way up there, you could glide over the gate. It's not enough height. You wouldn't make it far enough, so that was out of the picture. So I gave them my findings, and I said, look, please find something. I beg you. I don't want to run that part of the game anymore because it was literally taxing on my mental health.
Right.
And that was, I want to say, March or April of 2020. It was around the start of the pandemic when I did that.
Okay.
And I remember all of a sudden one day I was just kind of minding my own business, doing stuff, probably playing League of Legends or something, and all of a sudden I get a ping on Discord in all caps saying Gate Skip's about to be found, and I immediately bolted my way over to the Thai Discord, and I just jumped in a voice call and started freaking out because this is the moment that I had been waiting for as a speedrunner for 6 years at that point. As a person, I had been waiting like almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
Like 2003
Like
was
your
when I
entire
was
life.
my entire life was literally trying to find a way past that damn gate, and it was about to get broken. And it's so funny with the way that it was found because of the glitch that it involves. Because back when I started running the game, I was just kind of running around Rainbow Cliffs doing, stuff to try and find gate skip. And I go under the water. There's a bonus level, and there's like a waterfall. If you collect all 100% of the objects in the game. And I went under the waterfall because there's like a button there, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's a way somehow you can glitch out of the wall here. And I run up against a wall, and I accidentally bit. But instead of like biting the ground, shaking yourself off, I went to a dive animation, slid down the wall slowly, and then hit the ground and did the bite animation. And I showed Rob the Gamer 115, and I was like, hey, this is funny. And I literally said at the time to him, wouldn't it be funny if this somehow gets us past the gate? Fast forward 5 years, and some mad lad that I had no idea of who he was at the time, who had literally joined the Discord like a week, if not even that earlier, just post just a single image, just saying something along the lines of, what was it? Oh, I think I found a new glitch. And Ty is just swimming on something he should not be swimming on, and I'm just sitting there like, what is going on? Because it seemed like something that we would have found earlier. Luckily, we couldn't have found it earlier. But we were all going around trying to figure it out. And then I go to bed, wake up the next day, just super excited. And then I find out that it's been found. And I do my first couple of runs with it. And it was just relieving to not have to play that third hub of the game. And I remember going to bed that night just after all that, and I remember I just kind of cried for a solid half hour in my bed, because again that was something that I had thought about for almost 20 years. I just cried. It was super emotional, and it sounds dumb for some people, but that's just how it was. It was a mystery that had been there for so long, and I finally had an answer, and it was just so relieving. That was a very, very important part of the game. It finally brought us to being like, some people have like opinions of what like a good run length is. And a lot of people like things below about 40 minutes is usually like the upper limit of what people will be like. This is starting to get a little long. You look at Ratchet and Clank 3, like if you look at Up Your Arsenal specifically, it's at 27, getting closer to 20 to a sub 27 minute time. Jak and Daxter, it's like what, 16 minutes nowadays?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Rack 1 is like 17 minutes.
17 minutes. Like these games are just insane. Like Jak 3 is nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, like all these games are like super long, and we're sitting here like, hi, we're from the same era. You still have to go through the full game.
Yeah.
And it's just really, it was really taxing for a while, because like other people, like we wanted other people to run the game, but none of them wanted to, because like, why would we run this hour-long game when we could run a 15 to 30 minute game? Even though it's a lot more difficult, it's a lot shorter. So, so when that happened, we finally had like, a claim to be like, hey, we're getting to be just as short. Why don't you try us out? And that actually got more people to try the game out. I mean, like, I know, so of the top 3 runners at the time, right now, Coral had been running since 2017, I want to think. But both Comic Crimson and Sir Lawrence and Z, both started running after Gate Skip. So it's not like, we're not like still like the old farts of the community like me are at the top of the leaderboard. It's new people who have come in since this revolution to the game, and they've made the game better in their own ways. But yeah, Gate Skip was something to behold. It was, people talk about like let's see, the barrier skip in Legend of Zelda. They talk about that one skip in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, that crazy one. I forget exactly what it's called.
Mm. There's the teleporter room early.
Palace Skip. Sorry,
Palace skip. You're right. You're right. Palace skip.
Palace Skip, and then you had both Lava Tube Skip and Fire Canyon Skip in Jack, and like all these like holy grail skips in games. And that was our holy grail. And like all these other games were having their holy grails found, we could never have ours found because we literally had to have it added in the game for us.
Yeah,
and I remember. So
well,
yeah,
okay.
so
you want to finish your thought, or do you want to do this one?
No, I'll go ahead with that. So
Okay.
like when the Switch version of the game was released, they obviously had to make some, quality of life changes, just to make sure everything's running smoothly for everyone. And there was an issue with a specific box in Bridge on the River Tie that people had issues with since the game came out in the early 2000s. And it's this mission where you already know how to swim, but the guy who teaches you how to swim, Rex, is like, you should probably know how to dive too. So he says, all right, dive into this box underwater. And with the way that it's positioned, the height of the box, it's really easy to, instead of diving into it, you just do a bite animation into it and you don't destroy it and you have to try again. So like a lot of people playing casually, and even when they start speedrunning, they would have issues because it's a very quick Thunder Egg where you would bite into it and you'd lose time because you have to get back up and then try again and hopefully get it. So what Chrome did was they said, okay, a lot of people are having issues with this, so we need to deal with it. So in theory, what would you think that the best idea to fix, a box isn't getting destroyed when people are diving into the water? What would you do in that case?
I would raise the box height personally.
Or raise it so it's even harder.
Well, I mean, you said it's in the water, right?
Yeah, it's in the water, but you need to dive into the water to break it.
So then you would lower the box, I guess.
You would lower the box. Yeah. That is the simplest solution. And they could have prevented the game being broken if they had lowered the box height. But what they did instead was they raised like the level at what you're considered underwater. So like you are technically underwater before you hit the water. And that makes it so that it's easier to hit the box. The problem is if you do a dive against a wall where there's water under you, the game thinks that you're underwater and now allows you to swim on land. And with that, you can now swim up anything that is a less than 90-degree angle. And that just broke the game wide open, and that's what allowed us to find gate skip. Because instead of lowering the box, they raise the level at what you're underwater. It's
very silly, but
yeah,
hey, listen, it worked out in our favor, right?
It worked out in our favor, and I like to have because we've had pretty good relations with Chrome. There was one update that they did on the PC version where they introduced a feature from the second game where there's like a boomerang select wheel, where if you press Y, it brings up a boomerang select wheel. The problem is we spam Y a lot to skip, it's the skip cutscene button. I call it Y because Xbox controller. But if you spam the skip cutscene button, it's the same button as to bring up the rang wheel. So every time we try and go and skip cutscenes, it would pause the game to bring up the rang select wheel, and then unpause, pause, unpause, and we were losing time. So we needed, and there was no option to turn that off. So I went to Chrome on Steam, and I said, "Hey, this is a great feature." And I said it a lot meaner at the time because I was really angry, but it was essentially, "Hey, this is great, but it would be nice to have it as a toggle." And they actually listened. They made it a toggle. And we're very thankful for that. So we've had good relations with them. So I like to have a little small like thing in the back of my mind, a little hope that maybe one of the developers at Chrome saw all the struggles that we were going through and just threw us a bone. Just to see what would happen. And hey, look where we are now.
Look where we are now. All right. I can ask you about more modern stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know how much you have to talk about, but we've run through all of my questions, by the way. So that's all the stuff I really wanted to talk about. But if you want to talk about this stuff more modern, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, let's talk about some more modern stuff. we can get into some of the spicy details of some of the most recent stuff that may not be a part of this, depending on developments.
Okay. Sure. Let me know.
Yeah, so like the modern run is very interesting, especially with the evolution from controller, because that's all we knew, to mouse and keyboard being faster. Because, you know, when you aim on controller, when you're moving the camera around, when you throw the boomerang, it throws it based on where Ty is looking. If you're on mouse and keyboard, it throws it based on where the camera's looking. So it allows you to do some things where you're running away from things and throwing boomerangs there, and you're able to throw boomerangs around without having to stop, turn, throw, turn again, and keep going.
Right.
So it's really nice to have that, but it makes it difficult for someone like me who's run the game, who's played the game for, at that point, like, again, almost 2 decades, to try and learn the game on mouse and keyboard when I've literally played it on controller all of my life. And that is very difficult. It's a very different experience, but I believe we talked about it, and odds are probably we won't be able to put this in the video, but, you know, hey, who knows? But me taking up the role as Pizza Boy 08 and trying to you know, learn the game under a new alias, it's been very interesting, because there are a lot of, like, you know, differences in mindsets. Like in the old days, it was pretty much hit your skips first try and you'll save time. Nowadays, we're out here like trying to find the best angles. Like we're finding the fastest lines. How we're saving milliseconds on how we're moving. And I'm sitting here like, this is way too much. I just want to hit my skips first try in PB. And there's some much stranger skips nowadays, with like Doom skip at the end of the final boss being as awkward as it is, because it's, if you hit it, that's great. If not, you just basically played the whole game and lost the run literally 2 seconds before the end of it.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
It's very rough. It's very rough. So like, yeah, the top runners nowadays they are a different breed. Speaking with them, both as myself and as Pizza Boy, they are a different breed. Because they, for a very long time, there was not really like a sense of competition, where like what, like, we would be like, oh, one strat's better than the other. It was literally, hey, how far can we push this game, you know? And there was, like, to an extent, a little bit of competition here and there, but it was mostly like, push the game down as far as it can go, just because we want people to recognize us for once. We were like the middle child of us, of what is it, mascot speed games. We were the middle child of mascot speed games. And it was just kind of, we just wanted people to notice us, so we just wanted to improve as much as possible. But nowadays, we're having people getting into like arguments over which is faster, skipping the first level of the game to do the second level of the game with one boomerang and then going back to the first level, or all this stuff. And it's just really crazy, like, you know, seeing all this like stuff that's developed within the past couple of years since Gate Skip. It's like we had decent development up until Gate Skip, and then we've literally like surpassed it in a year and a half. It's ridiculous how much improvement has been made from, because if you look, about 2 years ago, the record was 50 minutes and 6 seconds, and we are about to, or actually, we just hit sub 2029. We are at a 28-minute time. We are like, because I remember when Zim got 27:59 in Ouya, I was like, damn, that would be really cool to get anywhere near that time. And we were like double that time at that point. And I was like, man, that's great. It's never going to happen. And then I remember when Gateskip was found, I was like, that's great. We're never going to get below a 31. And now I'm sitting here like, okay, all right, forget it. What's going on now? What are we going to do? Are we going to find a way to get past the wires on phase 2 of Final Boss? Or no, are we going to find a way to skip 2 wires of phase 2 of Final Boss? Because that's really the only way that the game can go right now. If we want to see major improvements, that's literally the only thing that can happen. Do you know much about that at all, or no?
I remember you guys walked it through. How there's the wires down there that I think they're like
Yeah,
invulnerable until you kill the turrets or something above. But
yeah.
the turrets require the ice boomerang, which is the second one.
So the first phase of the final boss fight, or to kind of like go over the final boss because it does apply to gate skip as well. The reason why we can skip hub 3 is because the boomerang you get from hub 3, the only use for it in any percent is to open the gate to get to the final hub. You do not use it a single time in the final boss. So for the final boss, you need the flamerang, which you get from hub 1, and the frosty ring, which you get from hub 2. The frosty ring you use to freeze the turrets and then bite them to destroy them. And once you destroy all of them, I believe there's like 10 or 12, you can then break open these doors to get to the inner part where there's these electrical wires.
Mhm.
And you use the flamerangs. There's 8 of them, and you hit them twice to destroy them. So you hit it 16 times, and then once you hit the 16th one, you get a cutscene, and then you get the doomerang, and then you can end the game. So back when I did my little findings on the gate, I did test that just to see if it was even possible to skip the first phase. So I teleported my way into there using a cheat engine.
Mhm.
Um, and you can destroy the wires, but the problem is the counter at the bottom of the screen never pops up. And once the 16th wire is destroyed, or the 8th wire, the 16th part is destroyed, you don't get the cutscene to get the doomerang. So if you were to then go back up top and then destroy the turrets, I believe it would just kind of do that, but you couldn't destroy the wires anymore, so you were kind of stuck.
Yeah, soft lock.
So yeah, pretty much. As far as I remember, it's been a bit. But so the problem is, if we could find a way to skip the turrets and trick the game into thinking we destroyed the turrets, or get our way down there and destroy the wires, and somehow trick the game into thinking that we already destroyed the turrets, that kind of thing, and just get the doomerang, we could beat the game after one hub, because that's really the only thing we need the frosty rings for, is the first phase of the final boss. It makes some of the stuff in the final hub easier, the final gauntlet, but
Mhm.
it's still possible without those. You don't need them. The only one that you really need is the flamerang. And even then, if you found a way to just glitch the game into giving you the doomerang, you could literally you actually wait. I think you don't. Yeah, you don't need. You don't even need the second boomerang. Technically, you can literally go into shipwrecks from the start, get the ability to swim, main menu or exit level, main menu, reload, go to the gate and skip the gate, and then go to the end of the game with one boomerang, no elemental rings whatsoever, and it would be a, let's just say, I'm gonna say probably 10-minute run.
Wow.
Probably less. Actually, no, a good bit less. Probably closer to probably closer to 6 minutes, because I forgot about Doom Skip and some other stuff. Yeah, it would be a 6 minute run. But like, if we found a way to glitch the game into giving us the Doomerang early, it would be a 6 minute run.
Yeah. Which is asking a lot, but
Yeah, because like the final cutscene is loaded when you first enter the final boss. Basically, because the way it works is the when you throw the Doomerang, you're supposed to like go into this like tunnel and then like navigate through the tunnel.
Mhm.
But it's at the very it's at like the height, the world level height, like the max height.
Mhm.
So with Doomskip, we go out of bounds and we fly our way up there, and that's all loaded in at the start of the level. So if you literally if you got the Doomerang at the start of the final boss, you could just run over to where we do Doomskip, throw the Doomerang, and end the game. So yeah, it. I highly doubt that will ever be the case, but I am known to have been very wrong. I was
That's true.
wrong because I gave up and thought that Gateskip would never get found. I was wrong in saying that we would never hit sub 31. I was wrong about a lot of different things. So
Mhm.
at this point, who knows? So I will say that it is impossible, but don't listen to me is what I'll say.
Hey, listen, What I think is probably my favorite part of this whole story is this idea of like the second renaissance, right? Of once gate skip is found, it's almost like the speedrun really starts, which is obviously
Yeah,
that's not true in
it,
a literal sense, but it is kind of true.
in a figurative sense, yeah. Like I remember back before Gate Skip, the Discord, it was like, decently populated, but there would be messages like, once every couple days, like a couple messages being like, oh, hey, blah, blah, blah. And usually not around that kind of stuff. If anything, people would like, even though there were less runners, there would probably be more interest in the second game at the time, even though there were much less runners, just because like it just was different from the first game, and all of us were so tired of the first game. That's why I went and ran the second game for a little bit. We're not running the third game. No. Nope. We don't talk about game 3. We don't talk about it. Like that's been a joke since I started of like we don't talk about the third game. Like people like Jack Runners for the longest time, and I don't know if they still do. They wouldn't talk about the Lost Frontier. They just refused to talk about Lost Frontier. As if it never happened. And that was kind of our stance on Game 3. On Night of the King, however you pronounce it. Night of the King can. I never got it.
Yeah,
it was. Who knows? Who knows what they were thinking? Really, who knows what they were thinking? Love you, Chrome, if you're watching. But yeah, like we never really bothered with that, and with the second Renaissance, we were all just so tired of the first game that we either went to other speed games, stopped speed running, or we would run like the second game, or maybe like a different category if we were really desperate to run the game. But then Gate Skip comes around, and I remember just being in awe after a while because we started getting messages into Discord daily. Like it wasn't dead most of the time. We started having like weekly things, like the Thai Tuesdays and all this kind of really cool stuff, and like people like were interested in running the game, and it was just like it felt good to finally have more than a couple of people want to run the game at once. Because at any point in time, there would be either myself or Nappa running the game, or for a while, Bruh, and then a couple other people occasionally would be like the quote unquote top runner at the time. And then you'd maybe have one person who's just like running the game as like their first speed game, or just trying to have some fun, do something a little different. But never really like interest. Like it was never really anyone's main speed game. And now we're here with, at least three people being top tier, and then like other people on like original console, and then people running 51 Thunder Eggs, which is old any percent. And it's just really cool because like it feels like it's an actual community now of like people who want to run the game rather than just like a couple of people who do it instead of other games occasionally. So the fact that there's been a second Renaissance has been rewarding, even though I haven't really been like too much of a direct part of it. It's been rewarding to at least see, because I know that I put in a lot of effort, and it just feels good to have it actually mean something.
And I would imagine that it also feels rather vindicating.
Yes. Yes.
This idea of like, this is the game that you spent 2 decades on, right? This game has potential. This game is good. You want people to recognize it, and then it's like got Gate Skip, and now it's like, yes, this is what
people are actually recognizing it. Because I would literally if I would host someone or was in someone's chat, they'd ask like what game I run, and I'd say Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, and they'd laugh. People would laugh. Whether I went to like a GDQ, they'd be like, "Oh, you run that game," and then like no one took it seriously. And like I'm just sitting here like, and I would laugh along too, because like I at least understand where they're coming from. But I knew that like the game has something there. There is potential. You just gotta you gotta believe us when we say that there is potential. And then we finally find Gate Skip, and then it's like, hey, you do actually have potential. And we're like, we've been telling you this for almost a decade.
Absolutely.
So at this point, I think that the only thing that would like fully like complete this for us would be that 6-minute run, but again, that's probably never going to happen. And then like we would also like to be on GDQ again. If we really need to, we can talk about my run. I don't really think it
No, we don't
necessarily.
need to worry about that.
Yeah, it like I'm fine talking about it, but yeah.
Yeah, what I always want to do is, sometimes you got to point it out when it's, you got to call a spade. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we talk about Deathfire's run, Red Rack 2 and Synux and Rack 1. Like those runs were not good, but we don't like try to shit on the people for being like, oh, this guy's a fucking loser. It's just like this guy didn't practice. It was not that good.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Mine was bad for different reasons. Like time wise, it was really good. If I hadn't made one mistake, it would have probably been a sub 1 hour run. So it would have been like top tier at the time. But it was bad for other reasons.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like that doesn't need to be in the story, and so that's why I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I thank you. I just want to say thank you because typically, when people have been around long enough, that'll be one of the first things that they hone in on when it comes to me is that, and it sucks that that's what I'm known for, but
Yeah, man,
and I do feel bad for the people who nowadays really do put a lot of effort into this game. Like the game should be in a GDQ. Like it's literally less than half the time of last time it was there. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
The game has come since then, but they're really hesitant to because of me. And I feel bad for Napa. I feel bad for Lawn. I feel bad for Coral. And I feel bad for everyone else because to an extent, I kind of potentially ruined that for them. But I hope that they're given the chance one day. Because they deserve it. The game deserves it. They deserve the people deserve to see a better run than what I was able to give them.
If it makes you feel any better, I think that GDQ has gone through like an overhaul, not an overhaul per se, but it's I think that a lot of the old boys that were on the team for the long time have kind of moved on or moved to other aspects, and I think that the game committee has been more open now.
Here's my question: is Maddie still there? Cool Maddie?
Cool Maddie is still there.
Probably not going to get in then.
Okay.
Because there was a thread at the time when I did the run, and Cool Maddie personally went on, and he had the right to be upset, but he said some things that hurt.
I get you.
So if he's still there, I'm gonna put the odds of either myself getting any game in or Ty getting in general at very low. Not impossible, but very low. But hopefully one day they can be the community, not me, because I'm not going to say that I deserve it. I've been through a lot and I've seen a lot and I'm happy with everything, but everyone else deserves it because they put in so much hard work and they deserve to have their hard work shown off to as many people as possible because of what they've been able to do in a game that for the longest time, many people, including myself at times, thought there's nothing here. So,
well, hopefully that happens.
Yeah, hopefully this video will help people be like, hey, that's kind of interesting because now all of a sudden I remember I was watching the Ludwig video because hey, speedrunning, I watch as much speedrunning video content as possible, and I see 5 hot dogs, and I'm like, okay, what the that was 5 hot dogs.
That was a good moment. I started getting a bunch of comments on the video that was like, Lud sent me here, and I was like, did Ludwig watch our video? And then I watched, and then what's really funny is you watch the video back, and it's like, is there a summoning salt on this? Oh, there is. I didn't want this, right? It's really funny.
We are summoning salt now when we are literally here to fill some of the gaps of summoning salt.
Yeah. But just that moment entirely of just like, oh, I don't actually want this, right? I was like, oh, damn.
Even though we do appreciate it, but
hey, listen, that video got like an extra 3,000 views in like a day because the Ludwig video pointed people to it. So I'm not.
Yeah, I remember I saw it. I immediately went to the video and I looked at the comments and the most recent comments. And I'm like, okay, how many Ludwig comments are there? And
how many Ludbuds are around? Exactly.
Yeah. Ludwig's great with that kind of stuff. He's always been like, I don't watch him too much. I watch him occasionally for whenever he does speed running things, I watch him because
Mhm.
I love speed running. He's cool. He's cool.
I
So
get you. All right, we're going a little bit past an hour. I can sit and chat
yeah,
a little longer, but I do want to wrap up the recording here.
yeah, that's fine. I don't
Was there?
really have what's that?
I was going to say, do you have anything else? But it sounds like you don't.
Uh, I don't really think I have anything else. Like the only thing I could say is like it's been great. Been great being able to share our story,
Hmm.
the community story as well as my own. That's been building for again 20 years.
Yeah.
Being one of the only people who cared about it for a very long time, like because when I ran the game religiously, I was the only person who cared.
Hmm.
Like you'd have Rob who cared about TieTube more. You'd have some people who kind of poke their head in and would occasionally do stuff, but they were focused on other games as well. I was the only person who really cared, and I carried the torch for as long as I could. And I eventually I had to give up one day, but I'm glad that I carried the torch long enough for other people to come along and pick up where I left off. And
Hell
I hope that with my practicing under a new name, hey, maybe one day I can, come back and, pick up where things left off.
hell yeah. All right. Let me go ahead and say goodbye to Craig here. There's one more thing I wanted to ask you about before we
Bye,
close it
Craig.
out. Bye, Craig.